Because I'm not talking yet. Can you hear me now? Check, check, check. Sound check, sound check. Can you hear me now? Check, 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 check. Okay, got it. You know why? Because I have my KFI mic. So it is noon here on Thursday, and a couple things have happened. There's this Corpus Christi, Texas attack. Naval authorities in Corpus Christi are saying that what they're describing as a Arab male tried to rush the gate at Naval Air Station Corpus Christi, and that he was he was dealt with fatally. So they're not releasing any more than that, except to say Arab male. But after the Pensacola attack, the Naval Air Stations apparently have become a target. But that one, the Pensacola attack, remember, was a insider attack. The guy was actually a Royal Saudi Air Force contract trainee. So there's that. I tweeted out a story from Forbes earlier this morning from their military guy, or their open source intelligence guy, and he was detailing the first overseas Chinese military base. Keep in mind, China has been a civilization for 5,000 years, and they've always been very inward-looking and defensive-minded, hence the Great Wall of China and all that. And so their first military base overseas was in the tiny Horn of Africa nation, Djibouti. And the deal is that hang on a second. I'm prepping something to give you scale. Djibouti is a longtime French colony in Africa. It was given its independence, I want to say, in the early 80s. But the part of the agreement was that the French maintained a military base there called Camp Lemonnier. And after 9/11, the United States found that it was admirably located, conveniently located for any Al-Qaeda elements that may be in Yemen. And that turned out to be pretty prophetic, because it's been very important for the last couple of years. But the reason I bring it up is because you'll recall around 2011, 2012, piracy was a big deal there in Djibouti. And if you remember the chronology, I came to KFI in December of 2007, and I left 2 years later to go do a morning show up in Seattle for a 3-year no-cut contract. So when the station changed formats, I drew a paycheck, for the next 2.5 years. Well, my friend Tom Bigley, Angry Tom Bigley, former Delta Force operator, he had a security company called Triple S Security, or Trisec is actually what it was called. And he bid on the State Department contracts for counter-piracy training. And we got one for Djibouti. We got one for Kenya and Tanzania, which all, Djibouti, Kenya, Tanzania, all border the Indian Ocean. And let me bring Google Earth up here. And as you see, here is Somalia. See the little hand there? That's Somalia. This is Kenya. This is Tanzania. And then also there was Madagascar. So obviously these are countries that their navies need counter-piracy training. So these were logical State Department contracts. So we built counter-piracy training centers in these Indian Ocean bordering countries. And then because the State Department is so smart, we built one in Uganda, which, as you see, is very, very landlocked. Uganda, extremely landlocked. But the State Department justified it by saying that the smuggling operations across Lake Victoria justified it, cigarette smuggling and etc. So anyway, what I did in 2012, and let's just zoom to it. So here's the Earth. Let me zoom to the Djiboutian Coast Guard base where we built the counter-piracy training center. So there we are. We're zooming in. The city of Djibouti is right over here, just a 20-minute drive away. The actual downtown right here. The best hotel, the only hotel worth a shit, is right here, the Kempinski. This at the time, NATO flight crew, Germans and French, were coming here. This pool here, the Northwest pool, has a bar right there, but it was nothing but NATO pilots wearing Speedos. So the other part of the hotel is occupied by a different government agency called OGA, other government agency. You might know it as the CIA, and they were in this wing. And so most Americans, we were in this wing, in the OGA wing, and we had our own pool on this side over here. So that was the nice hotel there in Djibouti. And by the way, whale sharks, literally whale sharks, swimming right up to the edge. So instead of paying $2,000 to go out on a whale shark safari, all you had to do was walk to the edge of the landscaping and jump in the Gulf there. The Gulf of, what is it? It's like the Gulf of Tadjoura. That's right. Okay, so back to what I did. Okay, so see this vast area here, right? This was an oil terminal, as you see, and then the modern Djiboutian Coast Guard headquarters was there, and then they had their training house, training barracks, and things like that here. So what we built was we took connexes and we built a simulated ship's bridge here, and then also a simulated engine room, and we trained. We selected a bunch of Djiboutian Coast Guard guys who could hit something with a gun, and then we trained them up and we sent them through this, because this is a shoot house. This is a live fire shoot house, so it's connexes with sandbags and things like that. And so this was, for the record, this was a $20 million State Department contract. So it was $20 million to build this and then run training for these guys, teach them how to shoot, and then send them through there and the whole thing, right? So that was 2013. 4 years later, the Chinese very quickly came to Djibouti as they saw the American interest after the Houthi coup in Yemen. American interest in the Obama administration lost interest in the use of Camp Lemonnier. And Camp Lemonnier, let me just orient you to that, is actually the Djibouti International Airport. The airport side is right there. The NATO base side is right here. And this is where, as you see, there's Special Operations Ospreys there. There's an AC-130. There's P-3s for counter-piracy back there in 2012. These are drone hangars. These are MQ-9 hangars right there. Usually there's one out there on the ramp. And then there's various helicopters on. So this is Camp Lemonnier. These are all the the quarters for soldiers there. At this point, I mean, you see how huge it is, right? At this point, there were about 3,000 troops on Lemonnier. A lot of special operations. There's also a forward special operations base in Kenya. So anyway, we started closing Lemonnier down, and the Chinese came barreling in with a bunch of money. And they said to the Djiboutian government, which had become addicted to American money, they said to the American government, hey, we'd like to build a forward naval base. We have never had a military base on foreign soil ever in our life. We'll build you a gigantic world-class port facility, because this is what the Chinese do. They're doing that in Burma and Cambodia and all that, right? So this is 2013. Okay. I'll show you imagery from May of 2020. This is about 10 days old. The Chinese base, their first overseas base of all time, is this. See that? Let's go back. There's 2011. There's last week. So that Forbes story is about this part. This is the military part of the Chinese building. See, this is, and this, by the way, this is where that counterterrorism thing was. So see what the Chinese did here is they dredged up, they did the South China Sea thing. They dredged up a bunch of seafloor and they built a port facility. And so you see there's regular freight there, there's oil, the whole thing. And what do they get out of it? Well, they get this forward military base, the kind of which they've never had before. They built this in 4 years. It is meant to house apparently about 2,000 Chinese troops, primarily Chinese Navy. It's got, as you see, it's got like a 6-story headquarters here. And what the Forbes story was about is about how, this thing resembles the Great Wall. Literally these big towers and these ramparts, and then the entrance, the vehicle entrance is now completed, and you have to go starting way back here. You have to go through there and then go through a chicane. Just to get onto the base. And this is a huge arch right here. Now I see Google 3D this is so new, they don't have it 3D yet, but you can see the admin buildings here. See, so we're looking east because I turned it. Let me reorient it. So that's north. They have a runway for helicopters. The Chinese are probably developing something like an Osprey in the next 10 or 20 years. This won't take fixed wing. I'm sorry, it won't take conventional aircraft, but it'll take helicopters, obviously. And as you see, compared to Camp Lemonnier, it's a pretty significant air facility here. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hangars for helicopters, 6, 7, and then a larger hangar here. And then these here are barracks. The way the Chinese work is probably each one of these is a company. It wouldn't surprise me if it was a battalion, but each one of these probably is 200, maybe 250 guys. This here is admin and hospital, more barracks, stuff like that. This here is unmistakable. This is training. This here is live fire training right there. So the Chinese are doing that for the Djiboutian military. Same with this here. This is training. This is training. That's a pool. You swim in it. But this resembles the Chinese base on the island of Hainan, by the way. So anyway, they put that up in 4 years. Sorry, you caught me picking. I didn't really pick my nose. It was not a pick. I was scratching. That is their base in their first foreign base in Chinese history. So just to give you a setup for that, Hainan or Yinan is a province. It's an island province, and it sits here in the northwest of the 11 o'clock of the South China Sea. Vietnam is right here. And the Chinese have announced in August that they're going to do a amphibious assault exercise. They're going to the Southern Military District, which controls all this area here. They're going to land thousands of Chinese Marines in a simulated assault on Hainan, which, as you see, is approximately the size of Taiwan right there. And so this is obviously practice to invade Taiwan. The Taiwanese are afraid that this Taiwanese possession right here might be threatened, the Pratas or Dongshe Islands. This is a Taiwanese base, right? Taiwanese Marines are on this base. It's got a 1 mile long runway, and it's got a garrison right here. But this is a piece of Taiwan from the Republic of China, the RC. And it is it's an atoll, a near perfect circle, a perfect coral circle. But this is the only part that's above water during high tide. And there is some fear that the Chinese would do something stupid, like seize that island, capture all the Taiwanese Marines, fly them back to Taiwan, and say, "Hey, that was ours all along." If you don't know, some of the situation of Taiwan, it's not just the island. These islands here, the Penggus, are part of Taiwan. There was a brief dispute over those in the 50s. But what's really crazy about Taiwan is that as you zoom in, you see there's ferry routes. These are car ferries. And do they go to mainland China? Because I thought Taiwan and China don't have any sort of relations, right? Well, they don't. These ferries go to these islands. These islands here are, let's see how many miles. These islands here are 7.5 miles from China. These are part of Taiwan. This is Taiwan. You go on those islands and it's Taiwan. So that's, just to set the strategic mindset for you. When the Taiwanese fear invasion, they mean from 7 miles away. There's a Chinese naval base. You might find this interesting. There's a Chinese submarine base on Henan. And am I getting it right? Is that it? Look at that golf course. And I don't believe this is it. That's not it. Let me find it. That's pretty amazing. Is this it? The amazing part about it is that it has a James Bond 007 submarine tunnel. It's a man-made cave that is dug into the side of a mountain. Come on. Yeah, I think this is it. So you see out here some Chinese submarines tied up alongside there, some attack subs. They're all diesel electric. They're not nuke. But then as you go down the coast, all of a sudden, look at that. It's a secret submarine tunnel that the Chinese have dug into the side of the mountain there. And probably because that's where they equip and they install and uninstall nuclear, ballistic nuclear missiles. But as you see, this is a vast base with lots of housing, lots of training, tracks. They you know, and by the way, these are not tennis courts. These are basketball courts. That's how big basketball is in China. Basketball is bigger than soccer. See more butts, more basketball. So anyway, that's, you know, and you can see for the Chinese, access to the South China Sea is paramount to them right now. So you have subs right there. The one thing about the South China Sea is that it's until you get off these banks and these other Chinese-made islands, there's really not a lot of depth. It's about 1,500 feet. So it's not exactly submarine territory. It's not where you would normally want to go subbing. So there's that. So anyway, that's your Djibouti brief. And that's your China brief and your Taiwan brief. Those are your various briefs. So we've been on for, I had my daughter get off Xbox for 20 minutes. So tell you what, we'll do a few questions so she can get back on Xbox. Oh, and then if you heard me on Handle, if you didn't hear me on Handle today, there's a turn up called a Computex. The USS Nimitz is off of San Diego, between San Diego and San Clemente Island, working up a final exercise before their deployment. And evidently, they're now incorporating in the exercise not just aggressive military flying strikes against them, but aggressive stealth military aircraft. So F-117s, which have been retired, by the way, the Air Force fully retired those 10 years ago, but it was discovered a few years ago that they're still flying out of Tonopah Test Range in Nevada. And so if you saw two F-117s yesterday, as seen here, of course, you saw them like that. So if you saw two F-117s over LA yesterday, you were not crazy. You might see them again today. They accompany a tanker from Edwards, and it'll look like that, or actually more like, it'll look like that. So you'll see a Boeing 707, a KC-135, and then two of these. And they've been doing simulated stealth attacks on the Nimitz. That's the only other reason they would be there. But otherwise, this is something that you haven't seen in the air for 10 or 15 years. So don't worry, they're not trolling you. They're just flying back to Tonopah. So that's, it looks like an arrowhead if you've never seen one from below. So there you go. Yeah, you know what? For Dragoon, I'll tell the when you see on iHeartRadio, when you see the Dark Secret Place picture that I have with me with a black watch cap on, and it's snowing in Baghdad on Christmas Day, and you see the convoy sign that's in Arabic and English. We used to write Durka Durka on our vehicles. I'll tell the story on Saturday night on Dark Secret Place. So no trolls. How come there's no black trolls? Hey, Reagan, I found one of your trolls. Do you remember these? Hey. There. Okay, so that's it. We'll continue on Saturday night. And what else? What else? Do I have anything else for the good of the order? I don't believe so. Again, here's my grandpa and me. I'm on the right. All right. Well, thank you all for your 25. That's 25 minutes exactly. That's good. So I'll end it now and see you Saturday night at 8 p.m. on the Dark Secret Place.